Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of First Canada Live. I'm your host today, Karthik, and we've got a fabulous show going today. But to start things off, I want to introduce one of our co-hosts from the First Canada Youth Council, Mehak K from Team 4617. Mehak, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, Karthik?
I am pumped for the show. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Well, I can tell all of you why we're excited today. We got so many good segments today. We have story time with the drive coach and alum of Team 1114, Matt Coffey, who's had a very illustrious first history. I think this is what I'm most excited about. We've got first trivia on the history of first. We've got so many good questions. We've got prizes from the swag master, Swaggy P, Paul Keenan, and Annika Pint will be hosting this segment. It's going to be really exciting. Mehak, there's one disappointing thing about this trivia segment. We're not allowed to play.
Oh no.
I know, like it's totally unfair because I feel like we were going to finish first and second, basically, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think you were going to win it, but I was definitely going to be second right there. We have a team profile on one of the top teams in all of Ontario, former world champions, Team 1241, Theory 6 from Mississauga, Ontario. And to start things off today, we have a team profile on Team 4939, Allspark from Brampton. So throughout the show, if you have questions for us, drop them into the chat. We'll be interacting. We'll be taking as many of your questions as we can to, if you want to learn about Matt Coffey, you want to learn about Team 1241, you want to discuss the first trivia, you want to make excuses for why you're not winning, that's okay. We can do all of that in the chat. One thing to remember that this is a celebration of what's great in our first community. The whole reason that we have First Canada Live right now is to maintain the energy and excitement that would be happening if we were having competitions right now. So we're trying to bring it into your houses, into your offices, into your bedrooms, into your living rooms right now. So let's just remember that this is a fun, positive, and energetic show, and let's keep that energy going throughout the day. So I think it's time for our first guests. Let's bring them in. We have Team 4939, Allspark 9 from Brampton, Ontario. They've won 4 blue banners in their history, most recently the 2018 Technology Division at the Provincial Championship. And from Team 4939, we have Mehak, who's a member of our First Canada Youth Council, and we have Banal, who is going to be joining us momentarily. Welcome, Mehak. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having us here.
Oh, really thank you for being here. But now glad to see you're here as well.
Hello.
So I want the two of you to take this away and tell us about Team 4939.
Yeah, for sure. So just to start off a bit, my name is Mehak. This is my 4th year competing in FRC. I'm a grade 11 student and I'm on Team 4939.
Hi, my name is Binal. I'm also a grade 11 student and I'm a part of Team 4939 and I've been a part of this team for about 3 years now.
Now, just to go a bit more what our team is. So we've been competing for the past 6 years. Unfortunately, we weren't able to compete this year. However, I'll go a bit more in depth about why and the impacts and how we sort of overcame that bump, I guess. And in just a bit more about our recent accomplishments, in 2017, we were able to win all of our district events, and along with we were provincial finalists. And in 2018, we were also provincial finalists.
And last year, we were actually semi-finalists at every competition, including provincials and worlds. We won the Gracious Professionalism Award at one of our district events, and then at one of our district events and at provincials, we won the Engineering Inspiration Award, which is something we were super excited about. But first, let's go over a little bit about this year and this season and why we weren't able to participate. So again, this is just a summary of our events in like numbers. But moving on from that, in 2020, we weren't able to participate in the season, and due to the situation, primarily because of the education system and like the uncertainty with all the strikes, our team chose to not compete for the 2020 season. And with that, we were obviously really disappointed, especially our seniors. I guess it was their last year on their team, and in general, like robotics played a huge part in our lives and took up so much of our time and our interest. And so without that, we obviously had a lot of free time, which had some pros, but we were really excited coming from the Engineering Inspiration Award from last year to use that energy to come back even stronger this year. And we weren't able to do that, unfortunately. But in general, also, like speaking from our perspectives in grade 11, that we were able to gain a lot of confidence and skills from the past 2 years of being a part of this team, and we were very excited to like apply it and teach our juniors as well. And we weren't able to do that, which was also a little bit unfortunate.
And I think the biggest part, what we were most afraid of with not competing this season was that we were going to mess up the sustainability of our team, because a lot of teams have grade 9 students that are incoming, so they have around 1 to 2 years to develop all their skills, and grade 11 and 12 they take on leadership roles. And we're really afraid because we sort of had this like 1 year learning gap that we're not able to I guess like complete, and we were afraid that because of this 1 year learning gap we weren't going to be able to do as well as we hoped in future competitions and keep up that momentum. But along with all the cons of the situation, there are still pros, and there is a lot of reflecting and learning that we were able to do in this 1 year. We were able to engage a lot more with our teams and in the community. So one thing that we focused on was gaining the skills of students in our school along with students on our team. So this year we tried to run a few mock classes were about CAD and programming, where students were able to sort of gain the skills, and sort of we did like a mock build season where we brainstormed ideas and what would actually happen if we were competing this season. And we were still engaged with competitions and with other teams, and still communicated with all our friends on other teams and the first community. A big part was we got a lot more time to work on our outreach events and sort of enhance that, and along with reflect on how we can come back stronger, any issues that we had in the previous season, and what we can do right now to fix that. And also a few members on our teams did volunteer competitions, which is great.
Mm-hmm. So now moving on to our outreach, so our team started majorly doing more outreach programs since 2018, so for about 2 years now. Last year was our first year presenting for chairmans, and we actually ended up again winning the Engineering Inspiration Award, which is super exciting. But quickly summarizing some of our smaller events, so we have a lot of FLL teams that we go and volunteer with and mentor. We also have an initiative called Sparking Hope, where we collect funds and donations throughout the competition season and from our events, where we donate to the Ronald McDonald House in Toronto. And we also have a lot of our team members that go and volunteer at Aaron Oak Kids, which is super cool with their STEM programs. And we've also ran an event called Girls Night In the past. And
now,
three of our main events.
Sorry, I just want to ask one question. What's Aaron Oak Kids?
So Aaron Oak Kids is I guess Mehak would want to elaborate more on that. Yeah.
Okay, so Aaron Oak Kids is a rehabilitation center with children with disabilities. So basically what a few members on our team do is that they have a Lego Robotics program in place. So we just go there, run the sessions, volunteer, and help out. And it's really amazing because we get to see students build any like crucial engineering skills that they need.
I also had a quick question for your Spark and Hope initiative. How do you guys go about collecting these funds from your competitions and outreaches?
So at every competition last year, we had like a set jar and a lot of like information pages and stickers and stuff. And we had team members that were situated for like this initiative specifically there, that constantly talk to teams, inviting members and guests at our competitions to come and donate, and then talking about the initiative a lot. We also set this initiative up at all of our outreach events, which is also very helpful to collect more donations to donate.
Great.
So just adding on, we had 3 main events that we're going to talk more about, which are STEAM Inspires that happened in October, Sparking STEM in November, and Spark Hackathon in December.
So just to go on in, I guess, chronological order, so STEAM Inspires happened in October last year. And the main idea of this event was to engage high school students into sharing their STEAM stories to other students, and sort of create this like networking event where a bunch of students passionate about STEM could get together. And it was really interesting because we had 6 speakers and we had over 50 participants, and all the 6 speakers had the same, I guess, like idea of STEAM, but they all had such different experiences, from some presentations ranging about their experience in robotics. As you can see on the picture on the bottom right, that's Hannah from 1325. And it was really amazing to see more FRC students come out and share their experiences. But we also had students talking about microbiology and what they hope to see in the future of STEAM, which was amazing. And then we also had a few activities that happened with like networking. So we had booths from different events or different like organizations. And then we also had like STEAM bingo, which is pretty cool.
So moving on from that, our main event in November was called Sparking STEM. And Sparking STEM focused more on the middle school audience, as we felt that while deliberating about our outreach events, that this population was something that wasn't as targeted for. There are a lot of high school opportunities compared to middle school opportunities, and so we really wanted to bridge that gap for that population, and that's why we made Sparking STEM. And Sparking STEM essentially is a day-long conference, STEM conference that it was our second year running last year, or in 2019. And last year we held it at the Brampton City Hall. And essentially what the event is that we have, it's primarily hands-on based. We have our icebreakers to let the kids get to know each other better. And then we go on with our, with morning activities, like CAD, Science Behind Slime. Then we have our STEMazing Race. And we have a few speakers at the very end, and after the entire thing, we have a booth display where we invited a lot of organizations from our community to come in and talk about what they do, and also have an avenue for the kids who did get inspired to go into STEM, a way to continue their interest for the following year. And we had over 100 participants last year, and we also tried to incorporate a theme. So last year our theme was perception, which basically means that trying to spark as many valuing everyone's perspectives as well as your own, and ensuring that everyone's ideas are heard and listened to. And so we also try to incorporate a theme every year with our messages in our activities as well.
So the next event that we hosted was Spark Hackathon, and this was held in December of last year. And this is our second annual hackathon for high school students. So basically what a hackathon is that you're given a topic or a theme in a short period of time, and you have to create a solution and then pitch it to a panel of judges. So this is a 24-hour hackathon, and last year was held at Humber Learning Resources, and the theme revolved around sustainable smart cities. So all the participants had 24 hours to create a solution to sustainable smart cities, or whatever they find that issues in sustainable smart cities, or how to enhance the theme. And then they presented it to a panel of judges. And throughout the event, we also had different activities. We had workshops, we had speakers, and then at the end, they all competed for prizes, which is amazing. And the year before that, the event was hosted at McMaster Innovation Park, and the theme revolved around space exploration. So what's pretty cool is that each year our themes sort of revolved around the FRC game, which is pretty cool. And at last year's event, we had over 200 participants. And this year, hopefully you'll be able to see a lot more Spark Hackathon and Sparking STEM events coming soon.
Mehak, one question I have for you. So what were some of the coolest things that were developed at the hackathon by the teams that you had there?
So what's really interesting is that one of the teams actually developed an app it's sort of like Uber, but for cars. So it's a way that you can park your car in a space. It's called iParkit. That way you don't have to go around waste gas looking for parking spots, and then you just reserve a spot and go to that exact place. And our top winning team actually is now working on commercializing their, pitch. And they're working with the city of Brampton to hopefully present it to other companies and bigger companies, which is really amazing, because it shows how you can just create an idea within 24 hours on no sleep. And then by the end of the event, you have something that you can actually move forward with.
That's amazing.
Okay, so moving on to some of our ongoing initiatives. So coming up, we actually have a few workshops that are coming up. So one thing that we had planned for early April was called Youth to the Power of AI, which is a workshop in collaboration with CK STEM, which is actually an organization run by one of the Team 4939 parents, which is super cool. And so this workshop was basically as an introductory to AI and working with creating some of your own smaller mechanisms of artificial intelligence. Right now it's been postponed due to the current situation. However, it's open to everyone in the GTA. So if you're interested, you can stay updated to see how you can get involved with our social medias at Team 4939.
So another event that we're currently working on is we're working on forming a curriculum and sort of have events for Girl Guides in collaboration with Girl Guides. So that's something that hopefully you'll see coming up in the future. And another really interesting I guess, interesting fact about our team this year was that we were able to implement a robotics course in our school to help engage more students into FRC. And the whole purpose of it was these students will learn crucial skills that they require, and then hopefully by the end of their course start working on the FRC robot. But it was also a really good way for everyone to maintain all the skills that they have, and sort of we did like the same thing where we mocked FRC season, which was really interesting.
And before we move on, we'd just like to quickly go over like 3 of the main things that we learned from working with our outreach teams and that we recommend for other people. First being to be impacting a diverse audience, or trying to impact a diverse audience. So some of the benefits of that is like you have a bigger reach of your audience, and you really play a big hand into improving sustainability of making STEM available for more people, which is really cool. And you also get to learn how to structure events and your messages to different populations, which is a really good skill to learn.
And the next tip that we have is to plan in advance. So our team was able to learn a lot from this, because the first event of Spark Hackathon, the first time we held Sparking STEM, we had 2 to 3 months of planning that went behind it, versus the second year we had 6 to 8 months, which makes a huge difference because you're able to focus on the details and sort of allow your vision to come to life. And also things like sponsorships and planning and getting attendees, that takes a while. So being able to build that over a long period of time is very important.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, like be different and ambitious. I know when we worked with a lot of professionals and communicated with them, we got a lot of like reactions of surprise, because we were bringing all these events and ideas that people didn't expect that much passion or ambition, and because we were also younger. But we really encourage that to use it to your benefit, to your benefit, because they were really like surprised to see it, and they were really like interested in us more, and they were more interested in helping bring our vision to life. And so use it to your advantage, and bring something that others may have not thought possible to your community with this ambition.
And to just wrap up, what we're looking forward to next year is that we've already started planning ahead. So we have a bunch of outreach events in progress. We're working on chairmans and just enhancing the whole overall outreach of our team. And we've also started focusing more on the organization and structure of our team. So moving forward, what it's going to look like, what positions we need to have, where we need to focus more. And then we still have ongoing classes such as CAD and programming, so students can enhance their skills. And we're really looking forward to 2021.
Well, thank you so much, 4939. And chat has been busy. There's some questions for you. So how do you come up with all these great ideas about giving back to the community? Like, what's generating these ideas? And do you have any advice for other people or teams who want to do these similar sort of events?
Yeah, for sure. I think when we're when at the beginning of the season we're talking with our other members, every year we get a new bunch of people that have more ideas, and so that's super helpful. First of all, second of all, collaborating with other teams and seeing what's happening. Third of all, looking at again which populations need more opportunities brought to them, and that really like helps spark our interest and like really helps us focus on what we think needs to be impacted next, I guess. And I guess we have a lot of ambitious people on our team, and so getting everyone from like different areas of our school and bringing together all those ideas really helps formulate and develop our ideas into something new.
Another question that we got is, how is your team keeping busy during this off time where you're not in school and maybe not going back? So how are you guys keeping busy during this time?
So I think a really great thing about our team is that although we had this 1 year break, we were still all able to stay very connected. So we still communicate with one another on our Slack channel, still post any first updates that we see, and even about like the live show. But we're also working on other outreach initiatives such as Spark Hackathon, Sparking STEM, and Girl Guides. So that's how we've sort of kept ourselves, I guess, busy with all this social distancing.
Nice. So one good question that we have here about your Girl Guides collaboration. Is this a general STEM focus, or is it going to be focused specifically on, say, First LEGO League or First LEGO League Junior or First Tech Challenge?
So due to sorry.
No, go ahead.
So because we're still in the works of of formulating this to life. Right now, it is a general STEM focus. However, as we work, as this situation gets better, we can really specify and bring in like the first elements as well into it, because like the Lego program is a huge is a very beneficial thing and a great way to like bring those STEM qualities and skills to this audience. And so we're trying to incorporate that as well as other STEM activities into our Girl Guides workshops.
All right. So as you guys talked before, you guys have initiatives for like middle school students, and you have FLL teams as well. Do you have any other ideas for engaging younger students into STEM?
I think the biggest part, something that our team learned throughout the years was there's so many other schools around your area. So the way that we sort of figure out what events we're going to do is we look at who we can impact at, I guess, like a community scale. And then we go, once that's complete, then we go further and further. So interesting fact was that this year we were able to complete our first global outreach, where one of our students sort of ran like these FLL programs in India. But to answer your question, focus on when you're trying to get more middle school students involved or elementary school students. A lot of us high school students already have those connections from our previous schools or middle schools and elementary schools. So reach out to them, and also reach out to any local libraries that you may have, or any other like rec centers where you can get access to, I guess, that age group.
And just adding on to that, one of our benefits from our school is that we have a regional program, and so a lot of our schools came from different middle schools and from like a different place in the GTA, which is really beneficial into connecting with more middle school students from like different areas. However, like even if you just reach out to any middle schools, any elementary school teachers, like the teachers are just as ambitious as us, and so they always want to get involved with like whatever programs and events we have, and they're always really excited to see these opportunities run by like their own students, usually, and help us out in that way as well.
So I think the one thing that's impressed me most here is you didn't compete this year. You wouldn't have competed. You didn't build a robot. And, you know, for years, Dean and everyone talks about, oh, it's not about the robot. And a lot of people kind of chuckle at that. They're like, well, if there wasn't a robot, why would we be here? But you're still here without the robot. How were you able to, first of all, maintain that momentum without the robot, but also how did you create a culture where the students still wanted to be around? Because I'm just thinking of the teams that I've been involved with in the past. We said, hey, we're not building a robot this year. There's no way they'd be doing this sort of stuff. So how did that culture come about? What's it like to be a part of that culture, and how did you keep that momentum going?
I think that like it was something that we never really thought was an issue necessarily. It was more of like, yes, we don't have a robot, but that just means, but like everyone automatically went into the state of mind that we have more time for outreach, which is amazing. Because I guess also from like the awards that we won last year and our impact from last year that we really felt for our community really helped like help this mentality stay in place for this year, which is something that we were really lucky to have actually. Yeah.
To also add on, our team was very robot driven and robot focused for the past few years until we sort of started doing outreach. And I think that's like the way that our team was able to sort of shift our culture a lot more by impacting other people and everyone on our team. Seeing like how big running these like small events can actually like what platform it can actually get us on, and like how many people we've impacted. So it took us time, because I think we're very confident that if this didn't happen, or if we weren't doing any outreach and our team unfortunately wasn't able to compete, we wouldn't necessarily have the same focus, or I think a lot of us would end up not staying as connected as we'd like. But because of our, as Binal said, achievements from last year, and our mentors are very supportive, so they all push us to be more involved at first events. They always send us links to any updates, continuously talk to us about what we feel like is going to happen in the season, although we aren't competing, which is really interesting. And it's nice to have people like that around you.
Yeah, it's just kind of an inspiring story. I just think that most people wouldn't believe that this would happen, and so I just think it's so cool. Another cool question that we had in chat is from one of our youth council members that you know, Namira. She wants to know, how do you make sure that it isn't just the girls on your team who are partaking in the outreach business and sponsorship?
So this is something that I guess we've struggled with for a while. As we all focus on like getting more girls involved in the technical side of STEM, it's also important to get guys more involved in the non-technical side. So I think we were able to sort of understand like our feelings of when we first came into the team and how we felt about going to the technical side and ensuring that there was no bias or everyone on our team felt comfortable to join. So right now, it's like a whole team effort because like everyone is involved in any outreach events that we do, whether it be volunteering or taking on lead roles. Yeah, so it's like so important. But I guess like communicating with everyone on your team, and you can't just have like, I guess, one boy on outreach because they won't necessarily feel as comfortable. We've noticed that like throughout the years or like as the season progresses, more guys like leave outreach. Well, like that's the same trend that we can see also in like technical roles where more girls leave technical roles. So it's important to ensure that everyone on your team feels comfortable, one, and number two, sort of have everyone involved rather than just having one person feel like sort of uncomfortable in a way.
Yeah, I've always thought it's really important because I think that there's always been this, not always, but a lot of teams have this distinction between the technical side and the non-technical side, and they're very separate. And I know on 11-14 it was like that for many years. And then for us to really get in the groove towards, getting into the Hall of Fame, we had to find a way to bring the sides together. And one of the things that we did was we made sure that there was the two co-presidents every year. The co-presidents had to be on the chairman's sub-team. And they had to want to be on it. They weren't going to be selected as a co-president unless they wanted to be on the chairman's sub-team, even though they were like highly technical. And culture flows from leadership. And I think what I'm seeing here, and I'm obviously not on your team, I'm seeing amazingly strong leadership from the two of you, and you clearly are putting outreach as a priority on par with the robot, maybe even higher than the robot. And I'm sure that just plays out throughout your team. And I just think you've captured something special here. This culture that you have it's unique and it's astonishing, to be completely honest. And I think this is really cool. I'm glad you came on for this showcase. For other people to see that, like, yeah, a team actually can be more than the robot. It's not just a buzzword or something that we say because we think it's the right thing to say. So I just think that's really cool. We are winding down here on time. Mehak, do you have any more questions for 4939?
I just wanted to do one last question. What is both of yours favorite memory from first that you guys can share with us?
Honestly, like, I know I've been bringing up the Engineering Inspiration Award a lot, but like last year, our team worked so hard in our outreach teams, and then just like we didn't expect it at all. Not at districts, not at provs. Like our focus was like chairmen. We didn't really know like what Engineering Inspiration was about, and so just like getting that award and like understanding what it actually meant was like so, and the pictures that you'll see like on our social medias of like us jumping up and down and like having like tears in our faces, they're like super nice to look at now.
All right, super quick answer, Mehak.
I think also making so many more friends in FRC, especially at Detroit.
That's one of the coolest things about the community and the networking. I'm glad we can still do some of this networking online through First Canada Live. Thank you so much to Team 4939 for being on the show. You're a true inspiration. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. I really need to make it to your Spark Hackathon one of these years. It's got to happen. Thank you for being here. Can't wait to see what 2021 brings with your outreach and with the robot. It's going to be super cool. Before we get to our next segment, let's take a word from our sponsors. Okay, we're back for another segment of story time. Mehak, excited for this one?
I'm so excited.
This is going to be a good one. This is a special one for me. I'd like to introduce mentor and drive coach for Team 1114, Matt Coffey. Hey, Matt, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Karthik, how are you?
I'm good. So let's talk a little bit about you, because I don't think the audience realizes the illustrious career you've had. And we could go all the way back into the FVC days where you won 2 world championships as a driver. And I don't think you lost a match in those 2 seasons, or did you lose one match?
Definitely in 2007, we didn't lose a match. But other than that, probably a couple along the way, but yeah.
And then as a driver for 1114 for FRC in 2010, you drove 61 matches. You only lost 3. Unfortunately, 2 of them were the Einstein finals, RIP.
The most important ones.
Yeah, that was not ideal. And then last year, you came back as a drive coach for 1114 for the first time. You coached 71 matches, and you only lost 4 matches. This is like a record that is just unparalleled through like first history. Do you ever think about that and like that impact and what you've done?
Like, I just feel that anybody could have done that from the situation that I was in, right? Just the way that our team is, the way that we go about doing things. Anybody could have been in that role, because with the support that we have from mentors, from students, it just creates kind of a culture where I was set up to be very successful.
That's incredibly modest and humble, but I think you definitely had a big part of those successes. So I've kind of given like the high level, like statistical overview of your first story, but do you want to tell us your first story began and where you are now?
Sure, it goes all the way back to grade 8. Actually, I was on my my local FLL team for elementary school, and we competed in a tournament at Niagara College. We went in, we weren't great. We were excited to build a robot, excited to get to the competition. And it actually ended up being that I met some 1114 mentors before I even knew what I was getting myself into, because at that time, they ran the competition at Niagara College. So flashback or go to the next year, this is when 1114 was coming to all the feeder schools. They were introducing themselves, bringing in VEX robots, bringing in FRC robots, and just kind of getting us excited to come to Governor Simcoe and to be a part of the program. So when it flashed into my grade 9 year, that was the first thing I jumped over. As soon as I heard that on the announcements, I was like, I need to be a part of this team because it's something that seems very interesting to me. So I was on 1114 from the 2007 season to the 2011 season. I actually went back to high school for an extra year because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I kind of shifted my focus of what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And then since 2011, so 2012 season, all the way up until this current season, 2020, I've been a mentor on 1114.
Very cool. And so while on 1114, one thing I want to bring up, because I think it really ties into what Mehak and Benal from 4939 were talking about, is you were heavily involved on the robot side on 1114, obviously.
Yep.
And you were the driver at one point, but you were also heavily involved on the outreach side as well.
I was, yeah. I think it's important that you get involved in as many aspects as possible when you're on a first team. If I just went in and was in the shop, I don't think I would have taken the same skills, the same attitude that I have nowadays if I wasn't involved in all aspects. I was nervous at first when presenting chairmans or getting into stuff like that. It was nerve-wracking. It was something
you presented chairmans as a grade 9 student, right?
Yeah, grade 9 all the way up until 2011, so 5 years. But it was nerve-wracking. It wasn't something that I thought I could do. It wasn't something that I would have originally wanted to get into, but as soon as I got into it, it was something that I didn't want to stop doing.
That's really great. It looks like you've had such a great impact in your team and in FIRST in general. What would you say your proudest moment was?
Yeah, so that's a tough question, because being in the program for as long as I've been in it, there's a lot of proud moments, but I can kind of narrow it down into 2, and one is more selfish and one is more as like a community, a team. So we kind of talked about it already, but the selfish one is winning the 2007 FVC World Championship. Came in as a grade 9 student. Basically, like the second weekend, Tyler Holtzman from 2056 was a mentor on our team still at that point. And he was kind of in charge of VEX, and I kind of linked up with him, and from there we took off, and that started right away in grade 9. And we built the robot in the first couple weeks, and basically all we would do was practice every day, keep practicing. And that just gave me an opportunity to spend times tweaking and making the robot as best as it could possibly be. And I really enjoyed that, and it was rewarding, and it hooked me as a grade 9 student. So I think it's important to have those kind of stepping stone programs so that you can get these students hooked on FRC and all of the aspects involved. So that's my selfish proudest moment, but I also have a proud moment for the team, and that was in 2012, winning the championship chairman's award. And I mean, I wasn't a presenter. I had presented for the past 5 years. I was obviously graduated now. I was a mentor, but I think just because the chairman's it's not just, it's from what we did in 2012. It's from what we've done cumulative from the past. Even before I was a student on the team in 2006, when we won our first ever chairman's award. The work that they did before us, the work that I've done, that I was a part of when I was on the team, and the work that we continue to do once I wasn't a student on the team, I think that's just important. And it's something that I was proud of. There was one picture that I really like. We're all looking up at the screen. There's like tears in people's eyes. And that was winning the 2012 Regional Chairman's Award. And at that point, we kind of knew that we had something special. Just because it felt different than some of the other ones that we had won. But that's kind of my proudest moment as a team.
Yeah, that in 2012, it was when the video played at GTR East.
Yeah.
And it was, forget about our reactions. I think that was irrelevant. It was the reactions of the crowd, and even teams, who we barely knew or didn't even get along with at that point, were having an emotional reaction. It kind of made us think that we're on to something here, and there was something kind of bigger. And I just think that, I'm feeling a lot right now because you've been on, but I really think that 4939 really hit on something for me. It's like, there's so much more to this program. And those moments with the Chairman's Award are just so special and we talked about this yesterday when Barbara was on the show, like the feelings that they had when they won their first Chairman's Award. It is just kind of like a very sort of cool thing. So Matt, you and I spent a lot of time just talking robots, talking past whatever. When we're out with our friends, the Perneets, the Joshes of the world, we talk about robots. What's your favorite story? You've been a part of, you've won a championship chairman's award, you've won a world championship, you've been on Einstein 5 different times, whether as a coach, as a pit crew member, as a driver. You've been a part of so many things, FTC world championships. What is your favorite story, or just one story you want to tell us today? Maybe not even your favorite.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, it's tough to come up with a favorite or a story that, I don't know, that's important to me, just because there's so many. But I think just based on recency bias, it would have to be the 2019 season. It was a tough season. It was a fun season. It was great to get back and behind the glass, back down on the field, because I really enjoy doing that. And it allows me to work closely with some students. And that's an opportunity that I had last year. So it was my first year in the coaching role. The driver, the operator, and the technician of our drive team were all grade 12. The entire journey was surreal, winning provincials. The streaming of confetti coming down from the arena, that was amazing. There was a picture that I showed Karthik the other day, which was pretty cool. And we were all lined up waiting for the score, 1241, 771, us. And you can even see in the background, the entire crowd's looking at the screen, just waiting for the score. It's just a cool moment. And as the score is announced, everybody's just like, has pure joy on their face. There's a whole series of it if you want to go look at the pictures after. Eddie G has them on his Flickr account, and it's pretty cool to look at. But anyway, yeah, so there was just a ton of hard work poured into last season. We came out at Humber. We did well, but we weren't where we wanted to be. And I think that's an important thing with our team. When we come out and we aren't where we want to be, we make the corrections and we make the iterations to be where we want to be for future competitions. So when we came out at Humber, we were still learning. We wanted to improve. So we improved more for Windsor, but we still weren't quite where we wanted to be. We kept making improvements to the intake, improvements to making the robot easier to drive, adding LED lights, the climber, making the climber lighter, faster. Just there was a lot of iterations that went into, and we were constantly working in between competitions. And I could visibly see that the grade 12 students, the seniors, were getting worn out. It was obvious. There was a couple days where I would go in after work, and Evan, our driver, he wasn't looking too good. He was feeling sick, but they wanted to improve, and you could tell that that was important to them. They wanted to, they knew that there was potential with this robot, and they wanted to keep it going. So we get to provincials, and we've made some great improvements. Our robot is looking as good as it possibly can. We end up winning. And then we continue to make improvements before Worlds, but a lot of practice. So we just wanted to keep hammering home what we needed to do. Get to Worlds, it was tough. That's probably the only word to describe it. We were with our friends, 2056. We had some bad luck. We faced some good opponents, and it didn't really go the way that we imagined. And that was tough seeing the kids after. Especially for me, I work closely with kids. It's tough to see when they're upset, and you can tell when they're upset because of the amount of work that they put in. That made me upset as well, but they didn't give up. So that's kind of like what my favorite story is. We go back to St. Catharines, and right from that very first day, they didn't stop working. They didn't stop improving. They practiced, they iterated, and we were determined to hit IRI strong. So we go to IRI, we end up doing pretty well. 2056 picks us, and it was kind of like a redemption or perseverance story. We go through all the way with them, and we end up winning the competition. And just like being able to be with 2056 and seeing the grade 12s able to drive and win that competition, just kind of come back after what happened at Worlds was an amazing experience. And that's probably one of my favorite stories. Like I said, recency bias builds in, but yeah.
Yeah, I think especially, I think it's more than recency bias, Matt. I think there's definitely the factor that you would experienced all this as a student and as a mentor, but like now as the drive coach, you were being able to kind of return the same sort of gifts and the same sort of lessons that people like Ty Holtzman and Commander Kyle Willick had delivered to you when they were coaching you. So I'm sure there's definitely some part of that.
Yeah, and I know the feeling, like just from 2010, just being down there, experiencing that, being so close, and just having that feeling of like, it was kind of like hopelessness, if I remember correctly, back to 2010.
Well, and let me set it up here for our audience. What happened in 2010 was that 11-14 had literally not lost a match except for one match for the entire season. And that one match they lost, they managed to set a world high score while losing. It was a weird game. It's hard to explain. So, and was the team 469, who at that point was like a 254. Like they were the best robot in the world. It was the two best robots in the world. And there was just this expectation that we were going to steamroll and win. And it, ran into a buzzsaw alliance, and there were some issues with the field. And not to make any excuses, it doesn't make a difference. But it was just like, I think a lot of people have experienced this in general in life, when you're just expecting something to happen, and it's not even that you're expecting it, but everyone around you is expecting it, and then for it to not happen. And I thought that last year at Worlds was similar that way. But I don't know, just the way that you and the students responded to all of that. And I think a lot of that, you handled it so well. I think that ties into some of what you do for a living. And I think Mehak's got some good questions about that.
Yeah, so you've had like such a long career with FIRST, and even after you graduated, you continued to mentor your team. So could you tell us more about your post-secondary education and your career, and how FIRST really helped impact that? Yeah,
for sure. During 40 or AllSpark's presentation, Karthik had mentioned that 11-14 has co-presidents. So I believe it was grade 10. It might have been grade 11. I was one of the co-presidents of the team. So for grade 10, 11, 12 in my return year. And for me, that was kind of like a shift in what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. Obviously, getting into robotics, I wanted to do something technical, something mechanical. I wasn't completely sure. I enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. But just being a president on the team and kind of being the kid that younger students come to for a task or for advice or for whatever it may be, kind of shifted my focus. I've always worked well with kids, and being that role model for them to look up to kind of just cemented the fact at what I wanted to do. So in grade 12, I didn't have the credits that I needed in order to go to the school that I wanted to go to and the program I wanted to go to. So coming back for my 5th year of high school, it was a bonus that I got to be on the robotics team again, but it was also just for to get the credits that I needed. So I attended Brock University in St. Catharines. So I was close still lived at home. I was able to go in and help out whenever I needed to, but I was in the concurrent education program. It was a 5-year program with a focus on child and youth studies. And my teachable is primary education. So I'm certified Ontario College of Teachers to teach kindergarten to grade 6. This past summer, I actually upgraded that to teach 7 and 8 as well. So I'm currently a teacher at an elementary school in Niagara Falls teaching grade 7.
That's just like, yeah, that's the coolest part. Like, you went from an FLL student, in grade 8, and now you're teaching grade 7s and 8s, and you're still involved in first and all that. So as a teacher and as a mentor, you're chock full of amazing experiences that you've accumulated all the way back to since 2006. Do you have any advice that you'd like to share for the students watching today?
I kind of touched on it already, but I think it's just like step into things, like step into the unknown, do things that you don't think that you originally wouldn't have been willing to do. Something that maybe is new to you, is scary to you. But my advice is to try those things out. If I didn't try out, like if I didn't join the chairman's team and be a part of that outreach, I probably wouldn't have been interested in it. But as soon as I did join it and I did try it, it was something that I really like to do. So my advice would be, there's tons of things that you can do on your FRC team. If you don't know, just give it a try. There's no shame in trying something and not liking it. But if you try it and you do enjoy it, that's something that can go a long way, right? It changed my career path.
Yeah, that's really great. So throughout all of this, who would you say has inspired you the most?
That's kind of an interesting question, because when I was a student on the team, it was clearly the mentors. We had a group of mentors that came down every weekend tirelessly from Friday right after work until Sunday night before they had to go back to work on Monday. By far, the mentors were the ones that inspired me the most. And I think that's part of the reason why I still do what I do, because I want to return that to students now. It's kind of just like passing the torch, basically. But now, for me, it's the students. There's countless times that I can think of where a student has just like shocked me about something that they can do. Like this past year, a grade 12 student taking it upon himself to design the intake completely from start to finish. There's thousands of stories that I could think of along those lines, but just being shocked at the things that they can do. Yeah.
We've been hitting it kind of heavy here. Do you have like a fun, goofy story you want to share? Because like I think one thing that our audience might not realize is like you're one of like the freaking funniest people I know, and I think whenever you're in a room full of a group of people, like attention kind of gravitates to you because you kind of just like pull the strings to pull out the best moments. Do you have anything that you want to share, whether it be hanging out with some of the mentors or goofing around with the team?
I can't honestly think of like a specific moment, but like you said, like
how about I have one that you were involved in. How about the time that Woody Flowers championship Woody Flowers winner Paul Copioli chased you around a hotel, right. And then this is when you were in grade 9, and then picked you up and slammed you into like a wall.
So we'll start this out with grade 9. I was 4'9", 80 pounds, just a tiny little guy, and one of the things that we do on 1114 when we were presenting chairmans is we would always practice. We'd be on phone calls like this, practicing with Karthik, with other mentors, with our team. But also at the event, we would get other mentors from other teams to come into our hotel rooms, and we would present to them, and they'd ask us questions that maybe we haven't heard before, just to kind of make us the most prepared we could possibly be. Karthik and Paul are good friends, and before they came in, Karthik was like, hey, because I for some reason I had developed this ability to fake cry. I don't know how or why, but yeah, I could do it. So he's like, hey, Paul's gonna come in. He's a scary dude. The first question he asks, just start crying. I was like, all right, I can do that. So we go through our presentation. Paul asks a question. I just start crying.
I think the question that Paul asked you was, what do you want to do?
Right.
It was like, what did you want to do when you grew up? And you were like, I want to be an NBA basketball player. And then Paul started like laughing. And then
that cued the fake cry. And then I don't remember what what led to it, but I think Karthik probably said something like I was fake crying, and Paul got angry and decided to chase me. And the hotel was the oddest hotel I think I've ever been in my life. It was shaped like 148's robot from 2008.
A circle.
Yeah. So I run because Paul's a big guy and I was 80 pounds. So I run into the hallway and we're doing laps around this circular floor. I'm trying to get away from him because I'm fearing my life. And yeah, he eventually catches me, puts me to the ground, and he's like, I was terrified. But there's thousands of stories like that that just like pop off the top of my head. And I think that's one of the main things that I really like to do this, and I still like to be a part of it, is just like the friendships. Like I've known Karthik since 2006, right? And that's something that that's been going strong since then and will continue to go strong. And I think it's just those relationships that you build with the fellow mentors and the fellow students. It's just so much fun to be a part of.
Yeah, it's just absolutely energizing. Let's go back and forth with some of these questions in the chat. A lot of people are really curious about your career and how it's tied into there. And there's one good one from Dave Ellis. Matt, will you be incorporating FIRST programs into your teaching? If so, how do you envision that in a practical way in the classroom?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty fortunate at my school to have quite a few Lego kits. So one of the ways, this was actually my first year. I've had 2 contracts where I was in kind of like a prep role, but this was my first year where I had my own classroom. And that was like a shock. I found out a week before I started that I was going to have my own classroom. And I was like, oh my goodness, I had a week to clean the classroom out from the previous teacher. And I was like, here we go. So I didn't have time to prepare any lessons, anything. I was just thrown into it. So actually like the first couple days, I went to the library, I grabbed the robotics kits and brought them right down to the classroom because it was something that I knew how to do. It was something that I was passionate about, and it was something that I knew I could share with students that probably haven't had the opportunity to see that yet. So I brought those kits down to the class. I broke the class up into 5 different groups because we only had 5 kits. And basically the first day I just let them explore and build, and they were building random things. But that's okay. I just wanted them to get an idea of what goes where, what they like to do. Once we did that, I gave them, basically they're in the kits, there's just like a manual to build the basic robot. So we spent another day, they just built that entire robot. So each group had a robot that they could use. And then I gave them a list of challenges, and they just like programming challenges. And I basically showed them how to program the robot, but that was about as far as I went. I was kind of doing this as like an inquiry. They need to figure it out. So they have their robots and they just had to figure out how to program it to do these challenges. And I've done this a couple times. I did it with a class when I was teaching prep as well. And it's really cool to see who's interested in it and who isn't. Most of them are very interested, and a lot of the girls tend to gravitate towards this because they really enjoy doing it. But that was kind of like our icebreaker for this year. So as I get more into my career, I'm going to find different ways to incorporate it. But I think that was a good way to kickstart the year.
That's really interesting. I know if I was in the 7th or 8th grade, I'd find that super cool because most classrooms always start with just the teacher doing, I don't know, a classic icebreaker, tell me one fact about you and your name. And something like that is really cool and interesting. And hopefully we see that more in classrooms coming up, especially for younger students. Another question we have here is, how do you like your job as a middle school teacher? And do you often tell your students about FIRST or engage them in FIRST related things?
Right. I absolutely love my job. I was terrified, and I don't know if other people have this feeling, but coming out of school, I was terrified that my 5 years I would hate it, but I absolutely love it. That I don't think there's anything else that I'd rather do. But yeah. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Do you often tell your students about FIRST?
Oh yeah. We use Slack on 1114 where we post videos, updates, everything. Every day there was an update coming in and I was near a computer. I was showing kids that were interested. I would put it on the smartboard, show off some videos. I just think I just want to show something that I'm proud of, because that will allow them to come out of their shell and be able to show things that they're proud of. Not only like if they're interested in it, but just like something that they're willing to show off, right? They're willing to show off things that they like and things that they do. And actually last year, after we came back from provincials, I didn't even tell the principal, like I told her we were going there, but I didn't tell her that we had won or anything like that. And she had found out somehow. I think something was posted on Twitter, and she had found out, and they actually had an assembly and like showed some pictures, showed the video of us winning the match. So it was pretty cool.
Wow.
That's amazing. We're getting ready to wrap things up here, Matt, but let's turn the tables a little bit. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I just have I guess I have a question for Mehak. What has first inspired you to do? Like what direction do you think you're heading in?
Well, FIRST has inspired me a lot. I've been doing it for 5 years now. I started in grade 8 and now I'm in grade 12. And I've had a pretty interesting FIRST journey. I've been on 3 different teams. And so throughout this, I've gotten like a lot of different experiences, seeing how different teams work. And I've gotten to try out like almost every single section of robotics, like business, design, building, electrical. And I would totally go into engineering if it wasn't that I'm really terrible at math. So I'm going into health sciences, hopefully for my undergrad, and then eventually going into law, hopefully a corporate law thing. And it's really inspired me to sort of come out of my shell a little bit more, show more leadership, especially through the youth council. It's really helped me that way. And yeah, it's not only helped me learn more technical skills, also more like life skills, leadership skills, things that I'll take with me.
One thing I want to jump in there, Mehak, because I think it's really important for you and for our entire audience. I find that most people who think they're terrible at math aren't actually as terrible at math as they think they are. And I think those who are struggling with math, it's almost never their own issue. It's just that they didn't have a foundation built when they were younger for various reasons. They may have had teachers who might not have been super passionate about math, or maybe they weren't passionate then, but it's that shaky foundation that makes math seem unstable at the top. But, so whenever I hear someone say, oh, I'm terrible at math, I can't do it, it's like, maybe you're struggling with math right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're terrible at it, and doesn't mean that you can't do cool things. Because like I've seen what you've done in robotics in your career, so you clearly know how to solve problems. So maybe it's just the language that's a little bit different. So it's not like you wouldn't say you suck at Japanese, you just don't fully understand the language right now, but you would probably be able to communicate it if you did. So I just wanted to, that's just a really important thing for my audience. I think when students or even adults say, oh, I'm terrible at math, well, maybe you aren't. So sorry, I had to totally interrupt everyone's conversation with that. Matt, you were saying?
No, I was just saying, and the other skills that you take away from it, those are important, and make sure you don't forget those when you do go on to university, because those are skills that will stay with you for the rest of your life.
All right, Matt, we're coming down on time here. We're getting ready for the Kahoot. Are you going to play the Kahoot?
I am, yeah.
Are you going to win?
Probably not.
Oh, I'm expecting some trash talk here or something like that. Anything you want to say to close things out? Actually, I want to ask, why aren't you wearing red today?
Oh, yeah. I'm not wearing red because I can't see myself, but I'm wearing my Pascal Siakam jersey in honor of our robot Spicy P. So, yeah.
All right.
Karthik yelled at me for not wearing red right away.
As soon as I saw him, I was like, could you change? Could you like put something on? Their team branding is super important. Matt, thanks so much for being on. This was an amazing segment. You could write a book. We could write a book about like everything that's happened. So thank you for sharing your journey with the audience. And I think also thank you for being a teacher and taking what you've learned in FIRST into teaching. And I think that's so important. And I honestly think that 10, 15 years from now, when we have so many more FIRST alums as teachers, things are really going to shift. Like think about what Mehak said about how cool it would be as a grade 7 student to have more classes set up like yours with the robots and the exploration. And so, there's so much more to FIRST than just becoming an engineer and becoming a teacher. It's like the most important job in our society. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
As before we get on to our next segment, let's have another word from our sponsors. Okay, we're back, and guess what? It's trivia time! There's Annika. Whoa, it looks like 2014 in your background. Time machine.
Yeah, speaking of time machine, we're going to be going back into the first history and learning a lot more about the games and the teams, both in Canada and around the world.
All right, so if you want to join in on our Kahoot with Annika, First History, go to kahoot.it or open up your Kahoot app. The code, and it's already been posted in chat, is 1357508. And if you're one of the winners today, make sure you take a screenshot of the final standings, including your screen name, send it along with your full mailing address to communications@firstroboticscanada.org and claim your gray first hat. So let's do this. It's trivia time. I'm really, really pumped. I'm disappointed that I can't play. And oh, we've got a lot of people jumping in already. So let's give it a little bit of time here.
Yeah,
and
Karthik, just while people are signing in, I was going to say I could listen to you and Matt talk about your experiences all day. I know that we've got some pretty fierce competition in today's Kahoot with all of the veterans that are watching today's broadcast, and also with Matt joining in. So I'm excited to see the competition happening here on today's broadcast.
Well, what I'm also interested in seeing is that during Matt's segment, he touched on a lot of things that are going to be asked about in the trivia today. So if you were paying attention, gives you a little bit of a chance to get some of these questions. How many questions do we have today, Annika?
We've actually got 20 questions, and thanks to both you and Mr. Bredner for helping contribute to today's Kahoot. I know I learned a lot, and hoping that the rest of the community does too, if you don't already know some of the answers to these questions.
Mehak, what's your favorite first trivia question?
Oh, that's a really hard question. I'm not sure. I think I know at the Girls in First weekend last year, there was a Kahoot similar to this with a lot of first trivia. I think that had a lot of interesting questions. There was a lot that I didn't know in that. So we'll see if this one is harder, or even maybe I'll know a couple more than compared to when I did back during the Girls in First weekend.
This one's tough. There's some tough ones on there. There's some ones that, the good thing is it's pretty accessible to the community in general. Like, it's not like you need to have been in a very certain place to get the knowledge. All the knowledge is out there. The Blue Alliance is your friend. If you want to log on right now, see what you can try and figure out. And Annika, do you think we should get this started?
I think so. I was thinking about Matt talking about his experience as a teacher, and maybe to all those students who have taken multiple choice quizzes, you know what to do if you don't know the answer. Question, answer C.
Answer C, I was going to say.
All right. So we'll get this started. We've got 67 players.
Kahoot time, I'm ready.
Do this. All right, question number 1. In what year was First founded?
So this is an interesting one right off the bat, Annika, because it's kind of a trick question.
Mm-hmm. How so? You can tell us after.
Well, we'll see right here. As the time ticks down, you really went hard with the options here. It's not like there's an easy, obvious choice.
Well,
and there
done.
It is.
Go for it.
The answer, 1989, like the Taylor Swift album. Why this one's a trick question is the first ever FRC competition wasn't until 1992, but Dean and Woody had founded First in 89. So thank you, Taylor Swift.
And thanks to those, and again, pay close attention to Karthik's commentary, because he may be giving away some of the answers to future questions. Next one. That's okay. All right, looks like we've got Zany Dog in the lead, and let's see question number 2. It asks, who was the first ever team to win 4 first championships? Men, was it Team 71, Team 188, Team 191, or Team 1241? Love to see those answers piling in. Only 10 seconds to go.
And the answer is Team 71. We talked about this on yesterday's show. Beatty, they won championships in 1997, 2001, 2002, and 2004. Team 254 has gone on to win 4 championships since then.
Amazing. Who will be the next team to win 4 championships? Remains to be seen. Let's see who's in the lead. Looks like it's still Zany Dog. And question number 3 coming up. What was the first Canadian team to win the Chairman's Award at the first championship? Who could it be?
We got Team 1114, Team 2056, Team 610, and Team 296. Jamie Sin just being savage in chat right now. I'm not even going to say what he said. I'm just going to ignore him. That's right. Team 1114 won the Championship Chairman's Award in 2012, as we talked about with Matt just a little bit earlier.
And Karthik, there have been quite a few other teams that have won Chairman's Award as well at Championship, or would 1114 be the only one from Canada?
The only Canadian team to ever enter the Hall of Fame.
Congrats. Zany Dog still in the lead, but Joyful Cat hot on their trail. Let's see question number 4. In what season did a Canadian FRC team first win the World Championship? Was that season called Lunacy, Bredner Breakaway, Stack Attack, or Aim High?
Bredner Breakaway would be a good game.
Yeah.
Bonus points if you know the year.
Ooh. No one answered?
That was weird.
Hey, chat, let us know if the Kahoot's working all right for you.
Yeah, well, Aim High was the correct answer. Not sure why those scores didn't register, because we sure saw those results coming in. Any word from the chat there, Karthik?
Kunj, one of our FTAs, is saying it timed out. Let's
All
see what
right.
happens when we jump to the next question, if it goes.
Okay, doesn't look as though the leaderboard is updating. So let's try to the next question and let us know, folks, what you're seeing on your screen. If you can see question 5, which asks, what did Woody Flowers wear in the 1998
Team Social at Epcot Center? I
Team
was
Social
there.
as Epcot?
I was there.
What was that experience like for you, Karthik?
This was the first ever championship I had been to, and it was like the most awe-inspiring thing in my first career. It was just like the Epcot Center, like Disney World, was dedicated to us, and there was no cooler feeling as a high school student of like, wow, this is legit. That's
a dream come true for many people. So it's great that you had a chance to experience. And I'm hoping that things are back on track with our scores registering here and a tuxedo and roller skates being the correct answer. So let's go to the leaderboard and see how we're doing. Oh, relief. Funny Quail is taking the lead, and glad to see that our scoreboard is updated. Let's go to question 6. How many Canadian teams have played on Einstein more than once? I wonder what it would be if it was just how many Canadians have played on Einstein at all. You probably know that one too, Karthik.
Yeah, I believe it's 9.
You can tell us after.
Yep, the answer is 3. That would be 1114, 2056, and 1241.
Wow, more than even just once is amazing. So more than once is super impressive. Well done. And looks as though Funny Quail is still in the lead, followed by Dr. Hamster. Let's check out question 7. In what year was the inaugural first robotics competition held?
And we've said this one, the answer. So if you can't get this, you're just clearly not paying attention. Annika, look at the Kahoot logo. That's the 2018 game right there.
Yeah. Power up.
Power up right there.
I wish I could say I did that on purpose. And Karthik, you know where the first one was held, as well as the year.
Yeah, it was held in a high school gym in Manchester, New Hampshire.
That's where it all started in 1992. Thanks to everyone who responded. 41 of you got it correct. And let's see who's in the lead. Still Funny Quail, followed by Dr. Hamster. And we've got question 8 coming up next. How many banners has the most winningest FRC team won? Now, Karthik, you know who this team is.
Yes. I will tell the audience, Team 254, the Cheesy Poops. Second place on the banner list is 1114. I won't say the number because it might give away the number. And third place on the banner list is Team 2056. So some heavy Canadian content up there. And the correct answer was 55. 55 blue banners that 254 has won.
What?
That's a lot. Yep, 1114 is at 51. I think 2056 is at 46.
Oh,
That's huge.
yeah.
All right, updating our leaderboard. Funny Quail in the lead. Let's see who can knock them out. With question number 9, what was the first ever team to use a swerve drive in FRC? Was it Team 3707, Team 254, Team 27, or Team 47? Earlier, I suggested choosing C if you don't know the answer, but I see that there is no option.
There's no
C.
letters. They just threw you off. They're just like, no, we're not playing that style
No.
here. I remember, and the answer is Team 47, Chief Delphi. I remember seeing that robot, and I was just like, that's part of what just kind of inspired me. Like the first time I saw that robot play a match, I didn't know it had a swerve drive, and then it went sideways, and I was just like, what? It was just like, blew my mind still to this day.
That's awesome. Do you remember in what game you first saw that robot in action?
Yeah, that was Ladder Logic in 1998. We saw them at the Great Lakes Regional. They were the first ever team to win 3 regionals in a season. They did it that year, which then 1114 did in 2006 and 2008 and 2010 and 2011.
I think you never cease to amaze me with your near superhuman knowledge of first statistics. So keep it coming while we check out the leaderboard.
Funny Quail.
Still in the lead.
Almost a 300-point lead.
Question 10 asks, outside Canada and the US, what is the only other country with a district competition system? Is it China, Israel, Brazil, or the Dominican Republic?
I would totally go to the Dominican Republic regional in March.
It's a good time to visit. One of my fave spots to visit actually on holiday.
Dominican Republic, if you got events going, you need an MC, just like phone.
Yeah. Are you Spanish speaking, Karthik?
I'm not, but I will try and learn. I can do numbers.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm learning on Duolingo right now. So anyway, let's check it out. I'm not learning any other languages, but Israel is the only other country with a district competition system. Anyone visited Israel? Have you been over there, Karthik?
I have never been to Israel, but I would love to.
I'm sure they'd love to have you as a game announcer there as well. Let's check out our leaderboard. Still Funny Quail. I want to know who that is. Reveal your identity at the end. But first, question 11. From what Florida-based company were all first teams required to buy their parts in 1998? Was it Small Parts Inc., Andy Mark Inc., Studica, or Automation Direct?
This is a cool one. I want to talk about this afterwards. I don't want to give away the answer. There's a lot of history that ties into this. Because first was very, very different in 1998. The answer is Triangle, Small Parts Inc. So back then, right now you could basically use anything as long as it's not explicitly illegal. But back then in first, you could only use things that were specifically legal. And the small parts catalog was it. But the small parts catalog didn't include things like gears and sprockets. So teams would have to, if you wanted to make a custom gearbox, you had to make your own gears. You had to make your own sprockets. FRC was so much harder back then because Andy Mark didn't exist. Like none of these companies existed, and you had to just work with basically what came in your kit of parts, which was a lot bigger back then, and like these limited parts restrictions. But what was crazy was you were allowed to use an unlimited amount of things like bolts. So what teams would claim to do is they would claim to take a bunch of bolts, melt them down, and then make gears.
Oh my gosh.
And since it was the honor system back then, it was like, oh, I guess you did that or whatever. But it was an interesting era of rules in FRC, and just be thankful we're playing under the current rules.
Sounds like it was much harder back then. So no more complaining about how hard it is, teams.
It's still hard.
It's still hard. All right, Funny Quail and Dr. Hamster rocking it on the leaderboard. Question 12. What team created a CVT for the first time and had trouble moving as they optimized it?
I need to state for this record, this question was submitted by Mark Brenner, not by me. So I don't get harassed.
Maybe you can tell the audience what CVT is for those that don't know.
It's a continuously variable transmission. So basically, you think of like robots that have like a shifting transmission to go between two gears. This CVT basically can have any gear ratio in between point A and point B, and it converts all the way through using two cones basically to do the mesh. The answer is Team 217, the Thunder Chickens. That was before the Thunder Chickens really employed principles of simplicity.
Well done if you chose Team 217 Thunder Chickens. Let's see how our leaderboard is stacking up.
Oh, it really tightened up. They're both Funny Quail and Dr. Hamster didn't get it right.
All right, let's see what the next question brings. It's number 13 of 20. What was the name of the first FRC game? Was it Rug Rage, Tower Power, Keen and Craze, or Maze Craze?
I think the game should be Swaggy P, Keen and Craze.
Well done to everyone who chose Maze Craze. I know Keen and Craze threw you off there, but this was, again, back in the first year that there was an FRC competition, and we know when that happened. Let's
Annika,
check out.
Do you know why it was called Maze Craze?
I do not. Do you?
I do, and you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but the entire field was covered with corn.
You're joking. Oh,
I'm not joking.
I have seen that game actually.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I do remember
we
seeing
could play
that.
like a game of Balderdash or something like that. You know, where people like that's just not true. But yeah, they had a corn game before a water game.
That's quite an added level of difficulty for the robots. I imagine some of that getting stuck up in your mechanisms and causing some problems.
So Funny Quail took the lead, by the way, while we were watching that. Ooh, on what team was the first ever Canadian Dean's List winner at the championship? This is a tough one. Yeah. This was back in 2009, the first year, 2010 rather, the first year of the Dean's List Award. Chat's giving us a hint that it's a former Team Dave, Team 3683 mentor.
Wow.
Yep. Team 1535, the Knights of Alloy from Sault Ste. Marie. Ian Graham was the mentor.
Well done, and we'll maybe hear a little bit later about some of the other Dean's List winners if we have a question about that in the remaining part of our game. Still Funny Quail in the lead, but not by much, eh?
Sturdy Lemming is coming up close, though.
Let's see how everyone does with this next question. How many helicopters can the hangar at Dean Kamen's house hold? Is it 012 or 3.14?
A Pi helicopter.
Have you been to Dean Kamen's house, Karthik?
I have been to Dean Kamen's house. Have you, Annika?
I have not been.
It's kind of like a museum is the best way I can use to describe it. There's just so much cool stuff around there.
If I do go, I'd like to get there by helicopter, though.
Yeah.
Well, as long as there's only one in the hangar, because there's room for a second one at that point.
Awesome. So two, I mean, one seems like it would be enough, but why not? Let's check out the leaderboard. Looking good. Funny Quail. Let's see if anyone can knock them out of the lead in the tail end of our game here. What's the current team number of the first ever team to win the first championship?
So this is the championship back in 1992 that we talked about.
Yes, with the corn.
With the corn.
I think we're going to have to get some footage of that competition and play it in between some of our segments over the next couple of weeks. What do you think?
That'd be great. Wow, this is when our crew got this one very wrong. Team 126 Gale Force. Now they weren't Team 126 at the time. The team numbers actually changed every year from 1992 all the way until 1998 when they locked them in and team numbers became permanent at that point.
Okay. That was a bit of a tricky one, but as you said in the question, what is the current team number? So that was a bit of a trick. Let's see if it had any impact on the scores.
Funny Quail didn't get it right, but it's still holding tight right here.
All right, here we go. Counting down to the end of today's Kahoot, from what country was the second non-American team to win the Chairman's Award at Championship? Was it Canada, Brazil, Israel, or Australia? How about Australia? Have you visited there, Karthik?
I have never been to Australia. I would love to go to Australia.
I think you'd be okay with the language there.
Accents are tough. Accents are tough. And the correct answer is Australia. Team 31-32, Thunder Down Under.
That was not meant to be a hint. Just saying. All right, Funny Quail. Still in the lead with Joyful Cat hot on their tail. Question 18 coming up. How many Canadians have won the FRC Dean's List Award at the first championship? Is it 7, 6, 5, or 4?
The Dean's List Award has been around since 2010. If anyone wanted to do a little bit of math and estimating there, so awarded 10 different times. And will be awarded 11th time this year, first announcing recently that they will still be going on with Dean's List judging. And the answer is 7. That's members of team 1535, 1325. Oh, there's so many. There's a lot. Yeah, well, there's 7.
Congrats to all these Dean's List winners. And as you said, Karthik, it's great to hear that they're going to be continuing with this award this year, despite the interruption.
1241, 4476, a lot of them.
Okay,
all right.
Let's keep going with our last couple questions. What Canadian team won the Gracious Professionalism Award at Champs for helping a team find their stolen trailer? Was it Team 865, Team 3683, Team 781, or Team 1305?
That sounds like a Carmen Sandiego crime. Find the FRC missing trailer. Team 1305, Ice Cubed.
Now, Karthik, do you know any of the backstory around this? It sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, well, it was basically a team's trailer had gone missing, and word it's kind of spread on social media. And 1305 was driving down the highway to get to their hotel or something along those lines, and they spotted the trailer, and they let the authorities know. And then they won the Gracious Professionalism Award for more than just finding the trailer. It's not like they made an announcement to Champ said, "Hey, anyone can find this trailer. We're giving you the GP award." But 1305 was just such an amazing deserving team of this award already that this was one of the other things the judges mentioned in the script, which was kind of cool.
That's great. I'm sure that team was very, very grateful. Hope it was in time that they could get what they needed from it. Okay, Funny Quail still in the lead with our last question. What was the first FRC team in Canada? Was it Team 188 Blizzard, Team 118 the Robonauts, Team 88 TJ Squared, or Team 8 Paley Robotics?
I'm not sure. Paley? I'm not
Paley?
sure.
Paley.
Team 188, the Blizzard. Now, it's interesting. They actually played Team 88 in one of their first matches at the championship in 1998. I was the drive coach for 188 back then.
Karthik, I know you've been sharing a lot about your experiences with Matt throughout today's call and your experience with 1114, but can you tell us more about your experiences with Team 188, because that's the one on which you got your start?
Yeah, it was that's where my first career started. I had Mark Bredner was a high school teacher at Woburn at the time, and we had competed in a smaller Canadian robotics competition for a few years, and I joined that team in '97. And then the next year, we heard about the bigger American competition, and we kind of realized the scope of it. And Mr. B is like, well, we're doing this. And all of us were just like, yes, 100%. We're so in, especially when we heard that the championship took place at Epcot Center. So as opposed to, and like, no offense, Scarborough, but like the championship for Canada, the previous competition was at Centennial College down the street from our high school. So the choice of Centennial College or going all the way to Orlando. So it was amazing. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We were by far the best team in this little Canadian competition. And we just kind of assumed we were going to be the best team at this big American competition. And we were not.
Surprise.
We were your typical rookies. You came in, you think you understand everything. One thing that was crazy was that year you had to pick up these 30-inch inflatable yoga style balls. And our robot could do a really good job of picking them up at our shop. It was great. Except championship that year was in Florida, and it was outdoors in tented arenas. And the balls were all had expanded. And we struggled to get them into our robot, to get them out. We had to make all sorts of crazy changes at the last second there. And it was just a very cool experience being on 188 back in the day. It was a lot of good memories there, and I still always try and make it out to Woburn for at least one FLL or FTC or VEX event a year, just to kind of like pay homage to where it all began.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Karthik. And your story also reminds me of athletes who need to acclimatize themselves when they're competing in countries of different climates. So you experienced something similar with your robot there, and so grateful that you had that experience, so that it kind of changed the trajectory or the path that you were going to follow because of that opportunity.
Well, you know what? I think our audience wants to know who won the trivia. So
let's do it.
15 out of 20, Sturdy Lemming in third place. Second place with 14 out of 20, but they answered the questions faster, Joyful Cat. And first place, 15 out of 20, Funny Quail. So take a screenshot showing the results and showing your screen name. Send it off to communications@firstroboticscanada.org with your mailing address to get your first hat. That's some pretty tough trivia if the highest score was only 15 out of 20.
Absolutely. So I'll pass it over to you, Karthik. And thanks for allowing me to join you here and teach me so much about FIRST history.
Hey, Annika, thanks for doing this segment. I think it's a lot of fun for the audience. Everyone was really in there. Mehak, how did you do on the trivia, even though you weren't allowed to play?
I did okay. I don't think I knew a lot of that history, but it was really interesting to learn about. I knew a couple of the things about like the first championships relating to Canadian teams. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I learned a lot from that.
What was the coolest thing that you learned, you think?
I think the first FRC game, Maze Craze, that's very interesting. I definitely want to go look it up after this.
There aren't many videos out there of it, but there are a couple. And I think there were some teams actually that used CDs as wheels to get the height to get their robot off the ground. Because back then, this was even before I think they even had access to the small parts catalog. And FRC was considered part of it. Was like what I like to call in game design an Apollo 11 style game, where you're just given a bunch of stuff in a box. You open up the box and you have to build your robot out of that. And personally, I know most people will disagree with that. I would love it if FRC did a one year going back to that style, where it's not about how much money you can spend on COTS parts from all these suppliers. Every team gets the same amount of stuff and you have to build your robot. I just think that would be the coolest challenge. Maybe it could be a mini challenge in the off season or something like that. But there was something very unique about it. You obviously couldn't do the same sort of crazy stuff that we see today, but there's something about that. And when we talk about things like equity, there's, everyone gets the same stuff and everyone's going on with that, which would be neat. Anyways, that could be a whole other segment on game design philosophies or anything like that. But thank you, Annika, for doing this trivia. Thank you to First Canada for donating the prizes, Swaggy P for hooking us all up. But now, a word from our sponsors. right, welcome back. And now it's time for another team showcase. Mehak, you ready for this one?
I'm really excited.
This is going to be a good one. Introducing Team 1241, Theory 6 from Mississauga, Ontario. I want all three of you to enable your mics. And Eamon, where are you, buddy? Because I want to do this right with all three of you. All right, we got 1241 here. Can I get a Hoya?
Hoya!
Yeah, baby. Team 1241 has won 24 Blue Banners, third most of any team in Canada, including most recently the 2019 Ontario Provincial Championship. And also, of course, they are the 2013 champions of the world. We've got a great crew here. We've got students Anush and Emma, and we have Maruz, a mentor on 1241, who we're going to have to talk about some of this, Maruz, because you've worked at some really cool places. You've worked for Apple down in California. You've worked for Tesla. You're now a gatherer. So we're going to want to talk about your story a little bit towards the end of this. But we want to hear about Team 1241, your story, your robot, all the good stuff. So take it away.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Karthik and Mehak, for having us on the show today. We will start off by talking about our bot. So we have competed at the Humber District event, which we were lucky to compete at, and we'll hopefully bring this bot to Waterloo if that comes back. So let us just introduce ourselves. My name is Anush. I'm also known as Timbit. I was introduced to FIRST in 2013 from 1241's feeder programs, library programs. I've been competing for the last 4 seasons, but I am a rookie to 1241.
Hi, my name is Eamon Rizwan. I'm also known as the kid who screams quite a bit at competitions. And I've been introduced to FIRST in 2013, and I've been competing for the last 4 years, and I'm a senior on Team 1241.
Anush, sorry, Timbit?
Yeah.
Are you going to explain that to us?
I'm a bundle of joy.
Okay.
I got it in grade 9, and it just stuck.
Fair enough. It's a good nickname, Timbit.
Yeah. Before we go, so I'm Bruce. I didn't put a picture of me in the slide for some reason. I'm a mentor on 1241. I've been a mentor for about 8 years now. I'm studying electrical engineering at York University, and we're excited to show you our robot. Our main topic today is sort of going to be talking about the robot, but also the design decisions and sort of the strategy we come up with at the beginning of the season and how we sort of follow through with that towards our design. So Eamon and Anush are going to sort of go into that a bit more in detail.
Okay, so just a quick layout of how our presentation is going to go. We're planning to do strat and the strategy behind the robot and how we want to design the robot this year. Then we'll be going into the drivetrain, some issues that we've had, and just generally how we built it. Then we'll be going into the tool and how that consists of our turret, our shooter, and our conveyor. Then we'll be going into our intake and how we grab balls off the field and we control them. Then we'll be talking about our end game and our climber, and then we'll be going into some electrical tips and tricks and some general sensors that we use.
Okay, so on kickoff day, we start off by watching the game animation as several teams do, and going into a really in-depth rule reading. So we're spending 2 to 3 hours split up into groups, reading the rules with mentors and ensuring we really have a good grasp of the competition. And from there, we come back together and list every single possible movement a robot can make this year, whether it's getting balls assisted in autonomous or supporting 2 robots in the end game. And from there, we decide what we wanted to do specifically. So we had a really good 6-hour discussion on what exactly we wanted to do. And by the end of it, we had 2 different robot archetypes in mind. A vanguard and a ranger is what we called it. Vanguard being a captain, a seating bot who would assist a third robot, be more flexible in their games play and able to assist really. And a ranger being a more dangerous spot on the field, having more shooting points, being that really fast cycler, and the robot a captain would really want as the first pick. And the 2 main defining features is a vanguard would be a taller bot with a buddy climb, or the ranger would be a smaller bot with more shooting positions and driving underneath the control panel. As a team, we felt ranger suited us better and ended up going with that, because we saw that having a 60% accuracy in the inner goal and the extra cycle we would get by being that shorter bot, with like estimated cycle calculations, we decided to go Ranger.
So after we do that, after we sort of list every movement that we can, or as many movements as we possibly can, we like to go into a sort of like a conceptualizing phase where we split students into groups, and as you can see, we usually split them into around 7 groups, as we do have a large amount of students every year. Um, and we separate each subsystem, and so we have students create their own design. So let's say for the drivetrain you have 6 wheels, you have 8 wheels, you have wheels that are 6 inches, you have wheels that are 8 inches. So it sort of just allows the students to be more involved inside of the design process, and it also gives the designers a general sense of what they're making. So as you see in the bottom 2 pictures, those are our prototypes. So the one on the left is our prototype conveyor, and the one on the right is our prototype intake. On 1241, we do like to prototype quite a lot, as not only does it sort of just give you a general guideline on what you're designing, but it also allows you to test how balls interact, or any sort of game piece interacts with manipulators throughout the year. So on the bottom right, that's our prototype intake. So the reason why we want to prototype our intake is sort of just to figure out how balls interact with like Versa rollers, or Versa rollers with like a screw tape pattern, or with other type of manipulators or other type of rollers that are available to us. And so, but aside from that, just prototyping, it also allows a student who is designing to get just a very brief and general sense of what they have to do and what like we'd want them to do. So now I'll be talking about the drivetrain. For us, we used a 6-inch wheels West Coast drive on the robot. So going to that Ranger archetype that we wanted to go for, we wanted to be a really fast robot that was able to make cycles, do cycles very quickly, go to and fro the feeding station, shooting in PowerPoint in matters of seconds. So we did have an what I'd say an extremely insane gearing ratio for our drivetrain, to a point where we sort of messed around with the Falcons, and it caused it to overheat while we were driving. So midway through Humber, we decided to change them to Neos, as it also helps with as Neos are just a little bit slower and they're not as high quality as Falcons. So it sort of just tweaks it down and makes it a little bit more easy, so we don't have to cut out on our drive.
Eamon,
Another thing.
Eamon, just for the audience, what was the gear ratio at, or at least what was your geared free speed, just so the audience has an idea?
You might find this very insane, but we did have it to gear at 21 feet per second. So we wanted to go absolutely positively crazy. We knew that
I want to ask about this. And did you look at the current draw on the individual motors when deciding at that gearing?
Yeah, we did. We knew that we were pushing it quite a bit, and of course, we wanted to test them. Falcons were a new motor introduced to us, so really just want to see how they'd react. And so, of course, we figured out that we were quite a little bit too crazy, and so we had to do what we had to do.
And when you were geared at 21 feet per second with the Falcons, was that with 6 of them or with 4 of them?
That was with 4 of them.
Okay.
So yeah.
That is aggressive gearing, folks in the audience.
So yeah, we decided to end up slowing it down. For Waterloo, we were planning to go around 15 feet per second, so something a little more realistic in a sense. Okay, so now we also talk about tool. So with our tool, we have our shooter, our conveyor, and our adjustable hood. So first, I'll be going into our turret. So our turret has a 180-degree range. So that's what that's what everybody saw at Humber. It was able to go from 0 to 180 in half a second. And for Waterloo, we wanted to integrate the 360 shot. But of course, when it comes back, you will definitely see us with that 360 shot. Then I'll be talking about our conveyor. Our conveyor is sort of just a middleman from our intake to our actual shooter. And so as you can see, the CAD in the middle, like at the bottom of the middle, it's a very basic design. We like to keep things simple on Team 1241, not over design anything, as it sort of adds another layer of complexity to students when they're CADing. So keeping things very nice and simple is really good, and it's a really good process that I recommend most teams do. Then I'll be talking about our adjustable hood, or what we call the rack. So our rack has a 13 degree to 57-degree range. So 13-degree being that the adjustable rack is all the way inside, and the 57-degree is when it be all the way extended. So at the moment, we're using a smart rev servo motor. And the reason why we want to do that is it doesn't take up a PDP slot. Later on in the presentation, you'll figure out that on 1241, PDP slots are very hard to come by. So you gotta use them efficiently.
That was a
So
struggle a lot of teams had this year.
yeah. So right now it was going a bit slower at Humber. It was going a bit slower than we wanted it to do. So we decide for Waterloo that we're gonna add an extra geed spearing range. So if you see that, then you'll see our rack go much faster. And personally, my favorite part about the tool is our limelight. At Humber, you did see us with a limelight on a set of pistons. And yes, so at the top left, you can see the GIF where it shows the limelight actuating out, tracking, and then your turret sets. At this moment, we didn't have long enough pistons and we were waiting for them. So then we decided to put that on to test. And then once we got the longer pistons, we mounted them on at Humber and we were able to perform live tracking.
It's really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about one of our most defining features as a bot, our intake. So our intake is quite massive. And it was trying to accomplish 4 goals, actually. 1, be able to intake from the ground, and more importantly, intake the 2 balls, which are spaced 3 balls apart behind the control panel. On top of that, we wanted to be able to actively intake from the human feeder station from the center slot. And this really defined how wide our intake would have to be, and the geometry wouldn't work out with a much simpler design. So we modified it, and we started off with 2 sets of rollers, a hood, 2 funnels, and as many teams noticed, the balls like to get caught in any nook and cranny. And this intake had a lot of dead zones. So we ended up modifying it for Humber. We went through 3 different iterations, one of them which was illegal, another one which wasn't the best use of our resources. So we ended up...
Can we go back and talk about the illegal version?
Okay, so it would be the zip tie agitation. We put a zip tie on our metal roller, which basically would extend past the 12 inches. We didn't realize it because we thought we'd only spin it when we were inside, but we still needed to spin the whole system to intake the balls in the first place. So it was like a miscalculation on us. Whoopsie, right? So we ended up putting 1 funnel on, taking away 1 roller set so we didn't have balls jamming as much, and had offset ramps, which would give like left side balls more priority over the right one. You could see the GIF in this bottom left corner. And for Humber, it performed, but we wish it could perform better. So for Waterloo, we decided to remove the funnel and the offset ramps and replace them with 2 vertical rollers, which would stick up and spin and push the balls, centering them into our conveyor. We ended up choosing to use 2 bag motors on 1 PDP slot, as PDP slots are valuable, right? And it is almost complete and will be ready for Waterloo when it does come back. Let's talk about climb. Yeah. So for our endgame, we had 2 priorities and 2 main objectives, right? And the most important objective was act as if climb is our second priority, right? Finish whatever cycle you're on and just dash back to the rendezvous zone and climb as fast as possible as if it's nothing, similar to how 1114 did it in 2019, right? So this led us to have a 4-stage telescope so we could climb anywhere on the rung, whether it's all the way up or all the way down. It would be a passive outtake using coil springs and a gas thread in the back, and an active ratcheting downward. In total, lineup plus climb would take us 8 to 10 seconds in total. And we had quite a few iterations for our gearbox, as once again, it didn't perform as well as we wanted it to. We started off with a worm gear gearbox with a Falcon, but Falcons can sometimes be a diva, and same thing with worm gears. And the worm gear would ride up into the Falcon, like hitting its 2 inner bearings, causing its safety lock to engage and start binding. We replaced it with a neo and ratchet system, but every single time we'd climb, the gears would shred. So every time we'd climb in Humber, we'd have shredded gears and have to replace our whole gearbox altogether.
Anush, which stage were the gears shredding?
It was shredding on the outermost stage, right beside our barrel.
Oh, is that? Sorry, I'm looking at the picture here. Is it we're using?
You're looking at the middle one.
The Versaplanetary.
So we had another stage right out of the Versaplanetary.
Oh, so it wasn't even the Versaplanetary stages that were going.
Yeah, it was the one outermost because we didn't have enough time to buy the correct gears. So we ended up having to mesh a steel gear with an aluminum gear. So it didn't work out the best. We ended up replacing this with a chain stage altogether, as fixing our gearbox in comp was super hard. So for Waterloo, we did come out with a more robust chain stage. Yeah. One more thing to mention is our gondola, or our hanging mechanism. So in Humber, we brought 2 simple hooks as we didn't have time to wire up our gondola. But the whole idea for a gondola is we want to be able to traverse the bar when we are already hanging, just to get that extra 15 points if it isn't balanced, if the rung isn't balanced, or get that 3rd RP for half of our matches, which is what we calculated. Yeah.
So yeah, now I'll be going into electrical, and some of the sensors that we like using, or some of the sensors that we did use this year. We used beam brakes on our conveyor this year, as it sort of removes the mechanical feature of needing an indexer. So you don't really have to stop balls from actually going straight through your shooter and straight through your conveyor. Um, you can sort of just have it so that the beam breaks. Once the ball breaks the beam, then your conveyor stops running, and it sort of proved to work, as we didn't have any issues for actually indexing balls at Humber.
For our audience who might want to try using beam brakes, who maybe have never done it before, where did you get those, and how are they wired?
If Marus wants to answer the question, because I forgot where we got them from.
Yeah, so you can actually buy these super cheap from Adafruit. They're like $2.50, $2.50 a pop. And there's actually to wire this, there's one's a receiver and one's a transmitter. The transmitter is the one with just the black and red wire in the picture. So that just goes into 5 volts in the VRM, the 500 milliamp port. And then the one with the white wire is the receiver. And that can just go directly into your digital IO in the RoboRio. And then it just works like any other normal switch. So you just use a digital input when you're programming it in Java or in C++. And like any other limit switch or bumper switch, it'll work the exact same way.
Very cool. And I think that's really important for teams to realize. This is a very cheap sensor, easy to wire and easy to program. Like Maru said, it's programmed like a limiter or bumper switch. This is a really, if you ever try to detect something or detect a movement or whatever internally on your robot, these sensors would be a great use case.
Yep.
So now I'll be going to integrated encoders and mag encoders. So we do use mag encoders in quite a few places. We use them on our drivetrain and our conveyor. So we use them on our drivetrain in order to get distances and control speed, and we use them on our conveyor to just control speed. We do use integrated controllers on our turret, our turret, our shooter hood, and our actual shooter flywheels. So for the turret, we use the integrated encoders in the versaplanetaries in order to get our angle or a degree of like your degree for your turret. We use them on our flywheel to control speed, and we use them on our rack to get the angle once again. Another set of sensors that we use as well, like almost every year, is we use gyros. We like using navexes, as they help you with making autos much simpler. So you can sort of just you don't have, like, you can angle your robot and you can just keep grabbing angle readings, and it just makes everything a little bit more precise while making autos. Another thing that we're planning to use this year were pigeons, pigeon IMUs. They're a smaller gyro, but we're planning to use them on our gondola as an auto balance feature. So for Waterloo, we want to add an auto balance feature so that when we get onto the rung, it automatically make it leveled, so our drivers won't have to worry about actually using the actually worrying about having to level themselves, and the robot would do it.
Did you ever get a prototype working of that?
We got the gondola prototype working, yes, but we haven't gotten a fully functioning auto balance working yet. And we were working on it after Humber, and then of course the sad news came out that the season had ended.
It's cool that you mentioned the words auto balance because I'm going to throw it way back here. But the 2001 game had a bridge that had to be balanced with robots on it and goals, which were like 180 pounds each, and so it was like a very difficult challenge. And back then there were a few teams which had auto balancers, and it was just like one of the coolest things to see it being done. So it's nice to hear that term come back again in FRC.
Yeah, we were definitely planning to use that just because it just makes like it just helps relieve some stress off the drivers as they can just latch on and then just quick, they don't have to worry about actually having to move it. And one of our final sensors that we use Limelight, and I heavily recommend that any team that can get their hands on it definitely do. It just makes your all your robot's capability and your offensive capability that much higher, as it's a really simple tool to use, and it's just tuning it is very simple. It's not very hard, and it just helps tremendous amounts.
Yeah, so that would be the end of our presentation if
Well,
you do.
Thank you, 1241. Let's Mehak, after watching all that, do you have any questions for them?
Yeah, I found it really interesting. Just as Karthik said, like the auto balance and using the limelight, I found all those things really interesting. I work a lot on the technical side on my team too, so learning a lot more from you guys was really interesting. I'm going to pull a question from the chat here. For your linear intakes, how did you ensure that it wouldn't get beat up by defense?
So,
yeah, go ahead, Tim.
So for our linear intake, what ended up happening is it would only extend and the whole cycle would be as short as possible. So the time it stuck outside of our bot was significantly reduced. So there was less chances of bots like hitting it. And we are planning on making it more robust. We do have bearings around so it wouldn't pop out of its place. We are upgrading to stronger pistons and like more pistons with greater stroke diameter, so it would have less chances of bending and warping.
And on the topic of that intake, did the balls ever jam when the intake was retracted?
No, because so the way if you saw our intake at Humber, we actually had rollers continuously spinning. So as the intake would actually come back, we keep the rollers spinning and the balls sort of ride up against that roller wall that we have. So we didn't really have any jamming issues there. The more issues we found was the agitation of like getting two balls into one area into the conveyor. So that's where we would sort of find the issues with the indexing. But as far as the intake coming in, not too much there.
Another question for chat, and maybe this is one that Maruz can handle. There's a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen next, but if IRI does happen this summer, would 1241 be going back?
I think at this point in time, I don't think we'll be planning on going. It's sort of a scheduling thing and within the team, but for sure, if we do get the opportunity, we'll definitely take a look at it. But as of right now, I don't think we're going.
You understand you are defending mentor tournament champions from IRI, and that title needs to be defended.
We would love to defend that title, but
right,
maybe we'll just send someone down. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the cancellations, but I'd love to hear from Eamon, especially as a 4-year team member. How did these cancellations affect you? Like, what were your thoughts when they happened, and how are you feeling now?
At first, I was quite the amount defeated. I was feeling really sad about it. I was like, my senior year has gone to this tragedy of coronavirus, so I was really feeling quite down. But then, by the end of the day, I started brightening it up, and I was like, let it be. You can have controlled it. You can I could use this time, which I've been using this time and sort of to develop my skills as I am looking to come back as a mentor. So I'm looking to just develop my skills so I can pass my knowledge on to future generations of the team.
That's very cool. Anything that you've been working on specifically that you want to share, that you've been trying to learn?
I have been learning how to CAD a swerve drive at this moment.
Of course.
I've been rooting this team. I've been telling this team that we are going to be Swerve Drive in my years on this team.
Dude,
I
let me
have
just say, you've already run out of PDP slots. What are you gonna do when you have to put 8 of them for your drive?
we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. As you see, I'm a strong rep for the Swerve, as I have Swerve Chungus right on my sweater here. I want to make sure that Swerve Drive happens at least once throughout a year.
All right. Hey, Timbit, what about you?
So it is a little heartbreaking to hear, right? I did shed it here when I got the news. I was in a robotics class actually, so I was sad, and it's gonna be hard for me at least, but I know that robotics doesn't end because the season ended or like of unfortunate circumstances this happened, and I will be coming back to mentor, so I'm looking at the bright side. Like Eamon, I am catting extra stuff and just working through making myself a better mentor for next year.
That's amazing. Maruz, we talked about it a little bit at the top, but do you want to maybe try and give a little bit of advice to the students in the audience about how to get cool, awesome interns, like internships like Tesla and Apple, like how you were able to do that? Obviously, because you're talented, but there's more to it than that.
Oh, for sure. And I really do think like being part of First Robotics really does give you that sort of edge when it comes to when you're applying to those internships. You do a lot of stuff that even like fourth year engineering students don't do and don't know about until they get to their final year. I would also recommend being very involved when it comes to like hackathons, personal projects. So like what Eamon and Timbit are doing here, they're working on their own personal projects in their free time. So sort of taking that initiative so they can just add it to your resume and show that employers that you are able to take that extra step when it comes to learning new things on your own. So it sort of shows that in this initiative, you're responsible. And generally, I would say is just keep on trying. Like I applied to a lot of different places and it took a lot of time. So don't lose hope when it comes to applying for internships. It's just like a grind game there, basically. You just have to keep on trying and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, that is so true. Like people don't understand that it's like you're going to get rejected from a lot of places, and that's normal and that's okay. Like even the best candidates do. You mentioned the personal projects, Maruz. Are you working on anything cool that you'd like to share right now, or have you done something cool that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so I'm currently doing a bit more robotic stuff. I'm going to be working on trying to improve our programming skills, or in terms of autos. It wasn't as what I wanted it to be, and I'm going to sort of use that free time to like personally work on some projects, get some improvements into our autos, and then I'll sort of teach that to the students for next year, and then hopefully and when we do come back, we're just that much stronger. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, 1241. You guys are just such an inspiration, a role model team. Your robots always blow us away with they're so complex, yet they're so efficient at the same time. And it's really cool just to see the younger generation coming up. And those were great explanations from Eamon and Anush. And I know you guys are going to be awesome mentors for 1285 and 1241 going into the future, or any other teams that you might branch off and go join. So thank you for being on the show today. That is a wrap for another episode of First Canada Live. Mehak, what did you think?
I loved it. It was so much fun seeing all the teams, and the Kahoot was also really fun. It was just overall a great episode.
Yeah, this is a great episode. Oh, we had a lot of cool stories, and I think we touched on a lot of things. 4939's story was just so inspirational about how they didn't even have a robot to compete with this year, but they were able to maintain that energy and maintain the outreach efforts. Talking to Matt Coffey and his journey from being an FL student to winning at the highest levels, but also having heartbreak at the highest levels, to being a teacher, just kind of showing that there's this first journey is a roller coaster, and that's okay too, because the learning curve is always going up. So thank you to everyone who was a part of the show today. It was a really fantastic one, just another really inspirational deal. Mehak, thank you for being a wonderful co-host. The Youth Council just keeps putting people up here, and it's fabulous. Tomorrow's show, very exciting. We're going to bring back Christine Bibick. She's going to be talking about First Lego League Junior. We got a team showcase. Hey, Mehak, your team 4617, Dawn's going to be on. Are you going to be on for the showcase tomorrow?
Definitely will be.
I'm very excited to see what you came up with this year. We got 2 storytime segments, one with Ian Kashowski, who's a first alum, but also now the regional director for First Canada in British Columbia. So a lot of stories about how British Columbia is now, they've got a great regional out there and a lot of great teams. And story time with one of our Michigan mentors, a good friend of mine, Jack Nowakowski from Team 7226. He's going to be telling us a very interesting story about how he almost won the 2008 World Championship. Came oh so close, but things just didn't work out. So Jack's hilarious, so that's going to be great. Reminder to everyone, stay safe, wash your hands, maintain your social distance 6 feet away, and we will see everyone tomorrow. Thanks to our producers as well. Have a good one, folks. Bye.